Okay, welcome to another video. What we're going to do today is check out the beta version of Kubuntu 20.10 ahead of its final release, which is getting very close. So we're in the live environment right now, and the ISO size for this one is around about 2.5 GB, and as per usual we're going to be installing onto the main desktop here and taking a little look around. So you will notice the install is a little bit different to the one you're going to find on the standard version of Ubuntu, and as you can see the keyboard layout section is different as well. So we no longer have a box to test out our keyboard layout. Instead we have to rely on this image here to know that we're using the correct layout. So by default it's on English US, and if you just look at the @ symbol which is on the 2, when we change it to UK it should be around about here somewhere, letting us know that we do indeed have the correct layout for our region. So let's go ahead and give that a go. So English UK, and as you can see, as well as the @ symbol, a few other keys have been swapped around, letting us know that we have indeed selected the right layout. So let's continue. And like all of the other versions that we've checked out so far, we're going to do the normal installation, which will include your web browser, LibreOffice, etc., and install third-party software. Now we're just coming up towards the disk setup, so the computer is going to start scanning for the disks that are currently inside, and then we're going to use the same drive that we've used for all of the other flavours, which is the Subbrent NVMe, which it has selected by default. So we're going to go for guided, use entire disk, and let the installer set the partitions for us, and we get a nice little before image so we can see it's a completely clear disk, and afterwards it will have a 2 partition layout, one very small one for EFI, and the rest will all be assigned to root using the exe4 file system. Now I do believe Kubuntu does make a swap file as opposed to Ubuntu, which didn't. So let's go ahead and press continue, and the installer has started. So the region has selected the correct one by default, so let's continue. Right, user account time. So Tyler for the username, and we're going to call this one Plasma Boy. Okay, and as per usual we're going to log in automatically, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so the installation has completed without error, so what we're going to do now is reboot and check out our freshly installed Kubuntu KDE desktop. Okay, and here we are. So as you've probably guessed, it hasn't shipped with the latest version of KDE, which of course is version 5.20, which does mean we're going to be missing out on a lot of the cool new features, which I made a video about. I'll chuck a link up there if you want to go ahead and watch that too. So what we're going to do is just jump into the about section and just see what versions of things we are indeed using. So as you can see there, it's KDE Plasma version 5.19.5, Qt version 5.14.2, and we have a newer, fresher kernel of version 5.8. Now just looking down at our system tray there, we do have an update to grab, which of course is going to be using the Plasma Discover Store to manage your application updates and installations. So it appears we've got quite a bit to update here, so we're going to go ahead and grab that. That's 220 megabytes of updates. And as you can see, by default, we do ship with the 20.08.1 version of the KDE suite of applications, but that's all getting updated to 0.2. So what I'm going to do now is pause the video and be back in just a moment. Okay, so we're all up to date and should be good to go. So first of all, we're just going to go over the general setup of the desktop, as Kubuntu do a nice job here of just getting a very easy and familiar KDE implementation. So obviously we have a nice single panel layout with our application launcher to the left. Now as we are using KDE 5.19.5, out of the box it will still be using the old school sort of Windows Task Manager, as opposed to the icons only Task Manager that's available in the alternatives. Now we also have some different alternatives for our application launcher. Some people might like the application dashboard, which of course is a full screen application launcher with your favorites to the left, some logout, restart and shutdown buttons, main panel of applications with your categories to the right, search bar at the top, and you can also manage your widgets all from within this one application launcher. Now as far as full screen application launchers go, I think that's one of the better ones. However, I still much prefer to use a nice smaller slimmed down application launcher, and the simple menu actually does a really good job of that as well. So with this you'll get more of a rectangular view with your applications categories to the right, and then your logout shutdown buttons right there. And actually I probably prefer this to the default, but we're going to leave it on the default for now as we keep going through the rest of the desktop. Okay, now moving on towards the right of our screen, we have our status and notification section in the old school sort of task list, as opposed to the nice sort of grid layout that you do get in version 5.20, and then we have our show desktop button right about there. Right, I also do believe it has modifier keys for super and left to split applications left and right, so let's give that a go. Perfect, so we don't need to configure that out of the box, that's all working, and it will do pretty much every part of your screen there. Very nice. Now what we're going to do is go through the sort of applications. I don't think too much has changed here, but I do know one has changed in multimedia compared to some recent versions of Kubuntu. So let's go into our categories here. So again, very sort of standard setup of the KDE games like K-Patience, K-Mahjong and all of that good stuff. In graphics we have Gwenview, LibreOffice Draw, Ocular and Scanlight. In internet nothing's changed here, so we're still going to be using Firefox as our default web browser, but it will be updated to a newer version of 81. Let's keep going. Then we have KDE Connect, which again is going to be using the most recent 20.08.2 suite of KDE applications. We then have Conversation, KRDC, which is a sort of a Linux alternative to remote desktop, KTorrent for our torrent files, and then Thunderbird Mail. Now I actually really do appreciate the fact that they've included a fully fledged desktop email client, as opposed to what you'd kind of get from KDE, which is like Kmail. I'm not a huge fan of that side of the KDE suite of applications. So the inclusion of Thunderbird Mail, I can dig that. Now in multimedia is where we're going to see our one and only change. We're now going to be using Elisa as our default music player as opposed to Cantata, which is a choice I'm very supportive of. This is the music player I use on my own personal machines, and I've never had any problems with it. It manages my library, which is a couple of 100 GB worth of music, and it's never failed me once. You have a nice little playlist view to your right, as well as your albums, arts, track list, etc. Very decent music player, no complaints there. Now if we just go back into multimedia, I do believe there's not really anything different here. So we have Pulse Audio for our volume control, and then VLC media player is our default media player, and again no complaints there. This is the one I'd personally use myself, as it will play pretty much anything you throw at it. Now moving down towards Office, we do indeed have the full LibreOffice Suite, but if you was to go for the minimal installation, not a lot of this would be included. Now I'm going to check something and see if it's got dictionary support out of the box. I really would assume that it does, but the only reason I'm slightly sort of second guessing it is because when we checked out Ubuntu, it didn't have dictionary support out of the box, but Kubuntu does, as you would have expected. So autocorrect will work as intended. Let's keep going, and of course this will be a very nice and recent version of 7.0.2.2. Perfect. Don't save. So that's pretty much everything in Office. Now in Science and Maths, it will be another LibreOffice program of math. And then in settings, there's not going to be too much here, so we just have the input methods, system settings, and the Wacom tablet finder. We will go through the system settings in just a moment as well, and probably change a few things up from the default. But one thing I do like about Kubuntu is in the workspace behavior. They have double click enabled out of the box as opposed to single click, which you do find in a lot of other sort of KDE distros. So you can select with a single click and then open it with a double, and to me it's the superior way of using your mouse clicks there, to be honest with you. Anyway, let's keep going. So that's pretty much everything we're going to get in settings. Now system again is just going to be standard kind of KDE stuff like your Discover Store, KDE Partition Manager, which is pretty much like gparted, and then the Mo1 Package Manager. So much like Ubuntu, we have two ways of managing our applications. We have the Discover Store here, Plasma Discover, and then the Mo1 Package Manager, which isn't too different from like Synaptic. So it's a more sort of granular control over your package app installations and removals, and I quite like Mo1 actually. So before we go and install anything, let's see how many packages we do have installed out of the box. So we have 1,929. It's quite a lot of packages, to be honest with you. It's not that far off 2,000. Now, I do believe we don't have the Snap Store installed out of the box on Kubuntu, much like Ubuntu didn't. So if we just go to Snap List, as you can see, we have no snaps installed, but of course Snapd will be running, and it should have the plugin for the Discover Store for those of you that like to install your Snap packages from your application store. So let's give that a go. Let's test it with Kdenlive. So we should get a couple. There we go. So one will be from the native repo and the other will be from Snapcraft. So let's keep moving. While we're in our terminal, let's go ahead and install htop, and then we can confirm that we do indeed have a swap file. Perfect. So as you can see there, we're using about 1.6 GB out of 32, and we do indeed have a nice little swap file there of 2 GB. Of course, you could remove that, resize it and make a new one, but 2 GBs is okay out of the box. So let's keep moving. So I don't think there's any other applications that we really need to take a look at. Like I said, not too much has really changed in the application side of things, apart from newer versions of things and at least your music player. So what we're going to do is jump into our system settings and just have a look at the general theming. I think, yeah, out of the box you don't really have a lot of additional themes. You just have the standard Kubuntu theme as well as the KDE Breeze and Breeze Dark themes. I quite like the dark. What we're going to do now is reboot, see how much RAM we're using at a fresh boot, and then we'll start playing around with things. Let's leave it on the default theme for now though, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, we are back, and as you can see we're using just under 700 MB on a fresh reboot, which is really pretty good going when you consider how much of just a fully fleshed desktop KDE is, and it's just becoming really good on your system resources there, which makes me happy because it's pretty much the desktop I use across all of my devices. Brilliant. Right, what we're going to do then is go ahead and install a few applications and change things around a bit, because I'm kind of a dock at the bottom, panel at the top, global menu kind of guy, and that's what we're going to work with today. So let's go ahead and just move our panel all the way to the top with the screen edge, and then what we're going to do is add a spacer before we start moving things around, and in that way it will save me dragging things and moving things around when it inevitably shifts everything to the left of your application launcher. Now here's our pager, which is of course for your virtual desktops. Now it only has one desktop enabled out of the box on one row, so what we'll do is add 4 desktops on one row. That way we can go from left to right with our virtual desktops. Now what we want to do is remove our task manager, because we will be using Latte dock to launch and minimize our applications from, and now we want to add our global menu with the add widgets. Global menu. Perfect. So let's just drag that there, and we are also going to change this to the simple menu, as I'm growing quite attached to the simple menu as of late. And now we should be able to open it up with Dolphin and make sure that the global menu has taken place. Perfect. Did we not remove our task manager? We must not have. Okay, it's not going. I'm going to imagine there's something popping up that we're not seeing. Okay, what's going on there? Let's try that again. So let's go bang, edit menu, panel, remove. Why aren't you going away, task manager? Is it gone? There we go, it's gone. Right, then what we're going to do is open up Latte dock. And of course we can use KRunner, which is our application launcher included in KDE. Unfortunately, it's not as nice as the newer one you'll find in 5.20, but nevertheless, we're going to use that to open up Latte dock now. Did we install Latte? No. Right, let's go into the Moan package manager, and we're going to use that to install a few additional packages now. So we want Kdenlive to edit today's video. And as we're on KDE, we'll grab it from the native repos as opposed to a snap or a flatpak application. Then we want GIMP, and we'll also grab Latte dock, and I think that should be us covered for the rest of this video. Mark for installation. While we're here, we'll also get rid of some of the KDE games. So let's get rid of all of these ones that are currently installed, and it should pick up any of the games that are included as a dependency. So let's have a look. Mark for removal, and that's going to get rid of K-Mahjong, K-Mines, K-Sudoku. So let's get rid of that one, and let's also get rid of that. Okay, that's all marked. So what we're going to do now is apply that, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so that installation has finished. Now we've done a slight change to our packages. We're now using 1966, but we're still within that sort of 2000 mark there, so that's not too bad. So what we're going to do now is launch Latte dock. Now we are going to have to install additional theme, because the only problem with the default theme here is, you'll see in a moment, we don't have quite a rounded corner on the sort of background of the dock, and that kind of throws me off a bit. I like it to have a little bit of a rounded corner, so we're going to have to grab a theme that does have nice rounded corners included. So first of all, we need to edit this dock. I don't like the icon zoom, and I don't like the analog clock. Let's go into advanced now. Now we're going to bring the hide and show down to 100 on both, and now let's go into the appearance, and I don't need any zoom on hover, so that is now not zooming, and we're going to bring this down to about 38. Like so. Perfect. Of course, once we sort of pin more applications, it will sort of expand to the size of the applications that are on it. Now what we're going to do is bring the size of the background to about 95 to give it more of a dot kind of feel as opposed to a plank, and we're going to bring that down to about 85 on the opacity. And as you can see, we've got a slight rounded corner, but it's not quite as much as I like it to be. So what we're going to do now is go into the global themes, which again is one of the great things about KDE. It's one of the easiest sort of desktop environments to customize without having to go to this place and that place. You can do it all from within the desktop settings and the global theme packages, and you're good to go. So we're going to go to Get New Global Themes. Oh wow, they've now made a Lamori theme, of course, formerly Unity 8. I might test that out at one point, but not today. Looking at the rating there, I don't have a lot of hope for it. So what we're going to do is go into highest rated first and grab the Chrome OS Dark theme. Yep. And that will also grab with it a nice icon pack, usually Teller icons. Okay, so that installation has now complete, so hopefully we can apply that and it will get sort of a nicer looking dock there. There we go. As you can see, we've got a proper rounded corner there, which I think just looks more nice on a dock. So we're also going to pin our system settings onto our launcher now. So let's make sure that Kden Live is installed properly and it's all working and looks nice with the global menu at the top left there. Perfect. I do think my panel is a bit large though, so what we're going to do is go to Edit Panel and just bring it down just a little bit more, and we should be all good. Perfect. Now all we need to do is check out some of the keyboard shortcuts, create some virtual desktops, because like I said, we will only have the single one enabled out of the box. Let's go ahead and add a few more to bring it up to 4, keeping the row on 1. Click Apply, and as you can see now it's changed our page art in our panel to give us the 4 applications, and you can drag and drop things between it like that. However, I don't think that works properly on the Plasma Wayland session. We'll check that out in just a moment, because we will install the Plasma Wayland session and see how that works very briefly. Now, reading the release notes, it's not included out of the box, but it is installable, but it's not supported, so we'll just have to sort of take that with a grain of salt. And with that being said, let's go ahead and install that now. So I can't remember what it's called, so we're just going to do an apt search for Plasma Wayland or something. I'll tell you what, let's just do an app search for Wayland and see what we get up here. So I do believe it starts with Plasma, I know that much. There we go, it's this one here, Plasma Workspace or Wayland. So let's go ahead and install that. Like I said, this is not currently properly supported, so you probably will run into a few issues here and there and want to fall back onto the default. So let's go ahead and install that now. Now I'm going to log out and log back in using Wayland and see if that works and everything works as it should. Okay, so we're just in the login screen now. As you can see in the bottom left there, we have changed our desktop session to the Plasma and Wayland. So let's go ahead and type in our password and log in, and hopefully everything works as it should. There's the splash screen, desktop's loaded, and Latte dock has loaded. So everything from first impressions looks normal. I have a bit of a weird gap on my top panel there, but other than that I can't see anything obvious as of yet. So let's open a few applications, move a few things around and see if it behaves as you would expect. So let's open up LibreOffice. Let's also open up the system settings, because if we can't get the drag and drop to work on here, we'll try and set it to switch workspaces with the keyboard shortcuts. So let's open up one more thing. Let's open up Kate, the little text editor for KDE. Alt tabbing's working absolutely fine. Now, moment of truth. I've had issues with this on Wayland before. Nah, I'm not sure what's going on there, but it just does not want to move a window with the drag and drop on our page or on our panel at the top. So what we might need to do then is jump into the system settings, go into our global shortcuts for KWin, and then what we want to do is search for 1, and then we want move 1 to the left or right. There we go, window 1 desktop to the left, window 1 desktop to the right. So if we can't do it with the drag and drop, let's see if we can do it with a keyboard shortcut, which is my preferred way of doing it anyway. So Control Alt left, and let's do Control Alt right on here. Let's apply that now, and hopefully we should be able to move windows across different desktops. Brilliant, so it is working. It just seems to have a weird limitation about doing it on the top panel. But like I said, this isn't currently supported, so there are certain things that aren't going to work as well as you'd want them to. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. But to be honest with you, so far so good. If I was to have to make a decision between the standard Ubuntu and Kubuntu and just forget about all of the other flavours, I would more than likely choose Kubuntu just because I prefer the way the desktop's set up and I'm more heavily integrated into the KDE workflow. And I think Kubuntu do a good job of just setting up almost quite a vanilla setup of KDE, and then you can kind of set it up any way you want. And with the sort of customizations you can do within KDE, you can pretty much get it to sort of work for whatever your workflow is. So thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and join the Discord. There'll be a link in the description. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.